Welcome back, you guys. Today I'm talking with Mary Virginia. We're going over the series about I didn't die, but I did lose a loved one. And I think that's hard for anybody who's lost a loved one. So if you guys are listening, I could probably take a guess that it resonates with you. Maybe you've been in this situation, or maybe you're about to lose a loved one, or maybe you just lost a loved one, or maybe you lost a loved one a while ago. I just want to talk about this in general just because I think it's hard and probably one of the hardest things that we'll go through in life and also have to process. So, Mary Virginia came up to me a couple months ago and said, "Hey, I think it'd be good to do a series about losing a loved one." And she has experienced lots of loss from losing a child herself to just, being 80 years old. You've probably seen and lost a lot of people throughout those years. So let's talk about that a little bit and let's kind of see where we could go with this conversation to help other people who are dealing with the same thing.
Absolutely. It's never easy. And most of the time, if you lose someone like I lost my daughter, I mean, that was unexpected. She was 28 years old,
Mm.
and it just happened all of a sudden. So if it's all of a sudden, or if it's something that takes a person a while that's going through cancer or whatever, or a person is older, it doesn't make any difference if they're are young or if they're older. The hurt is still the hurt, and when it's instant like that, that it's unexpected, those hurts really go deep. Are you ever over that? Never. You're never over it. You can bring back things that are reminding of the times that you had together with that person, but you're never really over it. But the thing that can happen is that by the grace of God and your relationship with Him, how He can bring you into a place of peace, knowing that they're where they need to be and that He's taking care of them. And you can rest assured that one day you'll be with them.
Mm.
So, if you don't release that over to the Lord and help you overcome that, then your life is going to be filled with anger and bitterness and hatred because of the fact that you're angry about losing that loved one. I know when I lost my mother, she was in her 50s, and it was instantly too. I took her to the hospital. 6 hours later, she was dead. And I said, Lord, I thought you were going to, deliver her and save her because she was a schizophrenic. And God said, well, I did. It just wasn't the way that you planned it. And so that opened my eyes to, God has a plan. But do I need to be mad at God? No, I can share my anger or my being upset. But if I live with that, that's what I'm going to deliver to people is how I'm angry at God because He took my mother, or how I'm angry at God because He took my daughter, or whoever it is that He took from you. So, it's just not it's a thing that grips your life and it grips your heart, and you have a choice to either embrace it and be able to walk through it in a place of peace, or you can take it and allow it to harden your heart and affect everybody else's life.
Mm. That's really good. I feel like so many people allow it to harden their heart just because when you lose something, it hurts so bad. When you lose somebody you love, it hurts so bad, especially if it's instantly. You didn't have that time to prepare, but
Mm-hmm.
I feel like even when you have time to prepare, it doesn't make it really easier.
Yeah.
It-
Well, but it's still, it's not just that kind of a loss. There's other losses, you know, like you mentioned, your struggle with divorce, my struggle with divorce.
Mm.
Those are losses that may not grip you as hard as losing a child or a mother or father or anything, but they still grip you because it's a loss. It's a part of you that is gone now, and you don't know how to live with it or how to deal with it.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think a lot of times we could focus on what we lost, but when we focus so much on what we lost, we forget what's still there.
Right. And to be thankful and grateful for the time that we had, the time we got to spend with that loved one, and the memories that we have of that, instead of dwelling on the negative part of how can I live now? I mean, I got suicidal after my daughter died. She was only 28 years old, and left two sons, and I'm like, I can't go on. But God says, no, you can, and you have to find that way to continue to live, even though you have that loss. And I always have all those good memories that we had together. I have the negative memories too, but I don't dwell on them. But I'm grateful for the good times that we had.
Yeah, I like how you said that because they're never really dead unless we forget about them because you still have those memories. And when you think about that and you go back to those times, you're almost reliving it.
Hmm.
The good ones. I mean, there's even the bad ones that you could relive, and that's what I think some people do is just relive the bad of
Yeah.
either the loss or the bad situation that happened.
And I think that the people around us, I think we've talked about this before. I know when my daughter died, I felt like I had the plague because nobody
Mm,
would come around me.
yeah.
Because people live in a fear that I don't know what to say to her. I don't know how to act in front of her. Well, the thing is that people that lose someone, their desire is you just come and let them talk to you about the person that they lost, talk to you
Mm.
about how much they miss them and how the good times, and you can help them with their grief if you just listen to their story.
Yeah, I think that's one of the most important things. I think too often, especially us as Christians, we try to throw a Bible verse at it. Like if there's a super verse that's just automatically going to heal something, like you just lost somebody and I'm going to give you this one verse and all of a sudden you're going to be better, okay with losing a person to where I don't think it's like that. Like even Jesus in the Bible, he didn't go throwing verses at people. He actually lived it out. He actually took the actions of listening to people, loving on people, giving them hope, and just sitting there with them and eating with them or doing things like that. It's not like if somebody loses somebody, you don't have to have the answer.
Right. And lots of times, if we really pay attention to the Lord, it's not time for that scripture. They're in a
Mm,
grieving position. So what do you do with a person that's grieving? You listen to their story and try to bring comfort to them.
that's
Comfort
good.
is a way of helping them heal,
Yes.
and bringing them out of that slump that they're in because of the person that they lost, and letting them know that you care.
Mm,
And I mean, Jesus brought comfort. We talked
yes.
about Thomas. He said, I'm showing you. I know where your heart is. That if I don't show you my hands, you're not going to believe it. He didn't have to do that,
Mm.
but he gave him that comfort. He says, "Here, you see this, and now you know."
Yeah, I think that's really good because too often we want to just try to figure things out or give people solutions and try to figure out on our own, like, hey, this is what I would do, or this is what I would need, or this is what I think. But the truth is, like, sometimes we we just need a hug or somebody to listen to or somebody to just to be there and not say one thing at all. I think that's an important thing to understand is sometimes when you don't know what to do, you don't have to do anything. That's the whole thing.
Absolutely. The thing is that just like you said, be there and just listen to them. And the thing is that's what brings comfort. The hardest thing is um, getting all those solutions in our head,
Mm,
and so we don't want to give them our head solutions.
yeah.
I mean, if you ask the Holy Spirit to come and help us to relate to them and listen to their story and speak into their spirit, then God will come and maybe there is a story in your life that you can share with them and they can say, "Oh, that happened. Oh, he came through that. Oh, that's how he did it."
Mm,
And it makes a difference than just thinking with your head just because you hear their story, you think you got a solution, or give them a Bible verse or tell them to listen to some music or listen to this preacher. Those things come at the right time. But when
yeah.
somebody's seeking out comfort and they're grieving, they're in a slump, you don't just push them down farther by
No.
saying, "Here, pray this and do that." No, you try to even just a little bit by saying, "You know what? I'm going to help you because I know a person that can bring some interesting things into your life, and maybe if you're interested in that, I can help you." And that'll bring them up just a little bit and
Yes.
help them say, "Oh, okay, he's going to help me."
And just the help or knowing somebody's going to help will actually be more hope than anybody else is given.
Yeah.
And I know one time um, my buddy was struggling drinking, and honestly, I didn't know what to tell him or what to do. And all I said was, I listened to him and I hung out with him, and he'd even come up to this studio drunk sometimes. And I just told him one day, it's like, I never had to quit drinking because that's never really been my problem, right? But I don't know what it takes, but let's do it together. Like, I didn't have to give him a solution. I didn't
Hmm.
have to say, like, this is the 12 steps you have to do. These are what you have to do, and then everything's going to be all right. I just said, hey, I don't know, but I'll do it with you. I don't know, but I'll walk with you. Let's do it together.
Yeah, and that's the difference. Is that whether it's a person grieving, whether it's a person with a drug problem, whether it's a person that has been divorced, or whatever the situation is, whatever's ripped their heart out of their chest, and they don't know how to deal with it, and they feel anxiety or suicidal or whatever. All they're looking for, and even sometimes I don't think they know what they're looking for, but the truth is they're wanting somebody to come alongside of them and help them walk it
Mm,
out.
that's good.
Because sometimes you tell somebody with anxiety, oh, listen, go over to this place at the church, and I think it'll really help you with your anxiety. Well, you're asking them to go there by themselves. That's
Mm,
anxiety enough.
yes.
you know, and you're telling someone that just lost a loved one, well, they were suffering and God's got them in a better place. Well, no, he wants somebody to say, I understand how hard it is for you to go through this, and I'm here for you. So, how would you like to go have a cup of coffee? Let's just get out of the house.
Yeah, let's start with a cup
So,
of coffee.
that's somebody just walking with me,
Yeah.
you know.
Too often, like you said, we think with our brains and try to give them these solutions of these great things and grandeur and all these other things, which are so. Here's the thing, and I could fix you. And it's just like some things can't be fixed overnight. With a loss, that's one of the most difficult things that we'll go through or that we'll have to deal with. And how are we supposed to do that? And how are we supposed to process that? And I'll tell you the truth, you don't process it all at once. You don't process it now. And some things take time. Some things don't need fixed today.
Well, and I think the big thing is what's that? KISS, keep it simply stupid.
Mm, yes.
I mean, you go talk to a person that's just had a tragedy, and you're trying to give them a solution.
Yeah.
They're not looking for a solution. Companionship, comfort, understanding, help healing, help walk me through it. I have a friend of mine that him and I were going to write this book years ago, and so we were trying to get together. He's in New Hampshire, and I was in San Antonio, and his daughter was getting married, and so he's all excited and going to get. She was going to get married, and she was on the way to her wedding, and a drunk driver hit her and killed her.
Oh, horrible. Mm, can you
His life
imagine?
stopped.
Yeah,
His life stopped.
I can imagine that's a hard thing to process or
It
even deal
is.
with.
So what do you do? I mean, there's a thing that God did for me, and I think He does for everybody, is when that thing happens. If it's instantaneously or if it's long term, is you're kind of like in a cloud where you don't really know the big grief that's there
Yeah.
until the funeral's over, everybody's gone, and you're home alone, and then it just kind of hits you, and it's hard to absorb, and that's when the grief just consumes you. But that cloud is what God is very graciously doing with us when it's so overwhelming, like him,
Mm,
his daughter getting killed instantaneously. So it's not an easy walk, but we also have to make a decision as a person that just lost that person. How do we want to get through it?
yeah, I was interviewing a young lady one time, and she's struggling with some mental health issues. And she was telling me that she'd go to her school counselors in her school, and that they kind of push her away or tell her that, almost kick her out sometimes and be like, you need to go get help before you can come back. And then they weren't helping her with the emotional or the mental aspect. that she was struggling with. But one day she got in a car wreck and she hurt her leg, and they made all these accommodations because she had a hurt leg and they could physically see it. And I think too often, us as people, if it's something that's not physically shown, it's like if you break a leg, you don't just go tell a person, let's go run. Like running's going to help you. No, that leg has to heal. Then once the leg heals, you have to do physical therapy. And then a lot of times you're not going to start off running. You're going to start off by, let's just take a step without a crutch or without a wheelchair.
Yeah.
Then after you take some small steps and you feel comfortable with that and your leg feels strong enough, then maybe you can start walking. And then after you start walking, then maybe you could do a slow jog and see how that feels. If that starts feeling all right and you start building up strength, then you can start running. And then maybe you could do a marathon, or maybe you could go back and do some of the stuff that you were doing before. But there may be that crippling effect that still like restricts you from actually doing some of the stuff before, because maybe when you start running, you have to retrain your leg, or maybe it starts hurting when you start doing it for too long, or whatever it is. So that's the same thing with our emotions. When somebody loses somebody, it's not like, well, let's go run. Here's, John 3:16, for God so loved the world and blah, blah, blah. It's like, you know what? Like, we have to, like, love people. We have to think of it the same way. They broke their leg. Let's take some time. If they had a broken leg, we'd go by them and help them walk. We'd open the door for them. We'd push them in the wheelchair. That's spending the time, sitting with them, grabbing a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
We wouldn't just say, hey, let's go run and it's going to make you feel better. Well, do you know how it would feel for somebody who was a runner and they broke their leg and they couldn't run, and you said, let's just go run? That's the same thing as that we do as Christians when we say, hey, here's a Bible verse, just pray about it, right? It's going to be all right.
Yeah, it's a great analogy. I mean, if we could just take that and understand it, the length of time that it took to heal a broken leg, what's the length of time that it takes to heal the loss of a child or a mother or a father
A
or a
broken
son?
heart, yeah.
So we need to handle that as carefully as we handle a broken leg, by going through those exact same steps that you said are the same steps that, yeah, it may get kind of boring and kind of tiring to go back and see that person again tomorrow or the next day just to see how they're doing and try to help them, to bring them into a place of reconnecting. And that's what's going to do it, is spending time with them and healing the broken heart. Will the memories always be there? That person that broke their leg will always know they broke their leg. There's a certain thing that you just don't get over. You don't get over hearing the snap or getting in that cast or, being in those things. Those memories are all there. But the healing that you went through that took so long, you appreciate that because now you can walk.
Yes. And like you had mentioned, it's like it could also be scary going and walking or running again, because now there's that fear of like, well, it could happen again, right? So a lot of times we lose somebody, and it's like, well, maybe it's better to harden my heart and not love like I used to love, because if I don't love, I won't get hurt, right? But that's not true. You can not love somebody and you can still get hurt the same exact way.
Absolutely.
And it's like we have to learn as people that even though we lose, we could still love. And sometimes we have to love harder, because now that we know that loss could happen, we should like take advantage of every moment we have with the loved ones around us, because we don't know how much time we have with them. It could be instant. It could be over a long period of time where they gradually, are fading away. But we have to take advantage of every single moment, every single day of loving the people around us, because there's no guarantee that they'll be here tomorrow. There's no guarantee that we'll be here tomorrow. And right now, we're grieving the loss of maybe somebody that we love. But at one day and one point in our life, somebody's going to have to grieve the loss of us.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And the thing is that, while we're here on this earth, how do we want to function? What type of person do we want to be? And I just trust that God wants us to be servants and helpers.
Yeah, and how do we want people to remember us? Because honestly, Think about it. The most we make of every day with the people that we love around us, it's not just how they're going to remember us, but it's how we remember them. It's if we ever lost them, there could be bad memories. And you know what? Somebody hurts you or somebody offends you, and you decide, hey, I'm not talking to them anymore. And then you just close them off and you harden your heart. Well, the truth of the matter is, you're going to remember those memories, and or you may start living with regret. To where if we just love to the fullest every single day and take advantage of every single moment with the ones we love, even if they hurt us, like hurt is part of growth, right?
Right. Yeah.
And if we could make it through the hurt, then we could grow to be stronger together. So even if somebody offends us or they say something to us, those are words. And what they are is they're just words. And if we can make it past that, or if they did something wrong to us, or maybe they owe us money or whatever it is, if we can make it through that, it can make us stronger in a relationship with them. And then the memories we have, the things we remember are just going to be filling. They're going to be fulfilling. They're going to be things that bring us joy, that bring them joy, that actually teach both of us lessons, right? Not just them, like, hey, because I was the type of person for a long time, like, if somebody offended me or hurt me, like, I'm going to teach them. I either block them off or I'd reflect what they did even harder. But to tell you the truth, that never got me any further in life.
Yeah.
Actually, I got held in those points where I decided to offend them back is where I got held because that's all I could think about. That's what my thought pattern was.
And that's what stuns your growth
Mm,
because we hang on to those things.
yes.
We hang on to regrets. We hang on to decisions we
Goodness.
made. We hang on to the hurts that people had. And the only way we can get to that is through a forgiveness process and asking the Lord that no matter what they did to us, that you take our heart and mend it from that and heal it with forgiveness. And I think forgiveness plays a big part in everything that we do.
And the thing I love about you, Mary Virginia, is, you're always telling people that how important forgiveness is and how we can't hold on to unforgiveness because and you have the experience of it too. And there's some things that we've talked about personally on podcasts and other things to where forgiveness is played such a huge role in your life. And if you wouldn't forgive people, that unforgiveness actually would have held you, held you captive. And they say that, the truth will set you free. And I always say, if the truth will set you free, what will a lie do? It'll hold you in bondage. But it's not just a lie. If forgiveness sets you free, what will unforgiveness do?
It'll grow and it'll get deep roots into your life to where when it's time, God says, "Hey, let's get those roots out." It'll be very painful because you've let them grow so deep in your life.
Yeah, and I think that's huge because we all have this unforgiveness in our hearts. And how can I forgive a person that?
Yeah.
Fill in the blank. Just fill in the blank for whatever somebody's done to you. But if not, you're reliving it every single day because you're holding on to it. If you're holding on to that unforgiveness, you're not releasing it. And that means that you're having to relive it, or that every time something happens, anytime somebody else does something similar, it's just automatically the same thing they did to you because you're holding on to that.
Yeah, it builds.
And if you
It
fight
keeps
for it,
building. When somebody does something to you, then somebody else comes along, does something else. You just build a mountain inside of your body.
I used to say a lot of times, I'm going to put up my walls to protect myself. And I put them over my heart. I put these walls over my heart, and I put these walls over my heart. And eventually one day I realized that now I was trapped because I put so many walls. I built it so far, so thick, so high, I couldn't get out of it. And there's no doors, no windows, no way to get out because it was so thick, it was so high, it was so tall.
And not even God could get through it.
Not even God could get through it. That's the sad thing is I wouldn't
Yeah.
even let God into it because these are my walls.
Yeah.
And the things I realized about the walls is they take emotions, they take feelings, and the worst part is they take stories.
And they take your life.
And they take your life. That's really good.
Yeah, they take your life. They make you a person that you don't want to be.
Yeah. I heard one time if you fight for it so much, like fight to hold on to this unforgiveness, fight for these things, they're yours to keep.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And they'll rule you.
They will rule you. And those are the things that help destroy us, too, is, we hold on to these things so much. And we're so, just this thing of I can't let go, or even the hurt and the pain. Like, it was so much just losing somebody that how can I just release that? I think it's just, like you were telling me earlier and sharing with me earlier, you were grieving and crying at your daughter's coffin, but you still had the peace because you knew where she was. I
Hmm.
think that's why our relationship with God is so important.
Yeah.
But it's not the relationship with God to where when somebody loses something, we need to throw Bible verses at them or tell them just do these X, Y, and Z. Or I grew up Catholic, so it would have been like 20 Hail Marys and these other Our Fathers and all this to where no, it's being with the person, being present with the person, not present as just I'm here, but present in the moment, present in the time, present mentally, emotionally, and physically with them. Because I've been present with people. I've been present with my kids at some point, especially after my divorce. That was a huge loss for me. Um, but I wasn't. I was present physically, but emotionally and mentally, I was not there.
Well, the thing is that grieving is a process that God has a human being go through because we're attached to this earth. It's
Mm,
part of our life.
that's good.
Grief is part of our life. But God gave us a free will and a choice so we can choose to let it rule us or we can choose to get a breakthrough and rule it by being able to live a life. I mean, my daughter's been gone almost 30 years now. I still think about her when Christmas time comes and we used to shop together and all those things. And it makes me a little sad, but I'm still in a place to where I'm peaceful because God has given me her two children, her two grandchildren, and her two sons, and I'm able to have life with them, and they remind me so much of her. And so we try to look for the good things. But grief is just part of the walk that we have to walk until we get a breakthrough.
I like that. Grief is part of the walk. Grief is part of life. I feel like loss is part of love, right? Like, there's a song, I think, a country song that said, "It's better of loss or loss and instead of never loved or whatever it is."
Mm-hmm.
And it's
Yeah.
like, would have you never wanted your daughter that relationship or your grandsons just so you could avoid the loss, or is it better to actually I mean, nothing's good about loss, but it is part of love. Now you have your grandsons, which remind you so much of her and the
Mm-hmm.
things that they're doing, and you get to enjoy life with them to where you still have a little piece of her.
Yep.
And I'd rather have these memories and these um, the time I had with my loved ones than to never have had it at
Absolutely.
all.
Yeah.
And I think that's where it's like loss is a part of love, and it's also a hard thing to accept. It's a hard thing to accept, and by no means don't think that we're excusing loss and hey, it's just a part of love. You have to do it. There's only three things in life: taxes, death, and
Yeah.
whatever else. It's like
No.
no, we're not excusing it or um,
I think this is a forum to invite people to participate in what we're trying to do is we're trying to help people tell their stories
mm,
and let us hear from you and what your story is how you lost your loved one. How did you cope with it? And if you're not coping with it, do you need someone to walk alongside of it with you? Do you need some kind of help? So I believe that all this is not just to go out there and say, we know it and you don't know it. It's just that there's some things that we've been through that we have some understanding about, and we'd love to hear your story.
yeah, that's a really really good point. Is we just love to hear your story, and not only that, like it's important for you to share your story.
And that brings healing. When you share your story, it gives you an opportunity to let other people know how much you loved that person, or how much you missed that person, or how much you hurt for that person.
And the more you tell that story, the more they still live. Like how
Yeah,
they've changed your life, what they have done for you, the positive things, what you have gained from it. From loss, there's gain also.
absolutely.
And I think that's important just to recognize is the gain of the love that we've had, the relationship that we had, the time that we had, and the time is never promised to us.
No.
And I think it just helps us realize, for me, when I have lost, it's also shown me how much more I could love, and how much more important the people around me are because they're still here.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, that's the thing that people don't understand, that, you have older relatives that are still here that are just looking for you to make a phone call to them or come by and see them or just wondering how they're doing. I mean, as people get older, other people just forget about them, and that's where, it's a sad thing, because when they do pass, then you're going, oh, I wish I'd have gone fishing with them, or I wish I'd have this, I wish I'd have that, and then you're having all those regrets to have to deal with. So there's just a lot about it that goes into losing a person. It's just not cut black and white that this happens when you lose someone. There's a lot of scenarios, and a lot of people could probably share some of their things of how they cope with it, or how the Lord brought them through it, or whatever their formula was. But
I think that's important, is to, start looking at your relationship with God. And I know some people struggle, so maybe you lost somebody and you're struggling with God. Maybe you struggled with God before the relationship. Maybe now you were good with God, and now since you've had that loss, you're asking God, why would you allow this to happen? Why would you allow this to happen? Why would you allow that to happen, God? I know not everybody has the best relationship or has any relationship with God. Maybe you're listening to this and you have zero relationship with God, and you've never had a relationship with God. Maybe nobody's ever taught you about him. But I would challenge you right now to start looking into that, examining your relationship with God, because there is John 3:16 that says, "For God so loved the world, he sent his only son." But why would God send his only son to die for us as sinners, for people that do wrong, for people that half of us don't even love him or know him or have a relationship for him, but he still sent his son to die for you?
Yeah. Well, it's check your heart, see where your heart is. Have you sought out, any kind of help from the Lord? And if you haven't, then maybe you should just look into that and see if God's drawing you into something, or just reach out. And you're welcome to reach out to us, and we'll be here available. And I'm sure that if you leave a message, we'll be glad to contact you and help you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like, and I challenge you guys, if maybe you are struggling with your relationship with God, or don't have a relationship, and you have tried stuff and you're still hurting, well, dive deeper into it, or start exploring that relationship, because I think time of loss is a time that we could grow, because there's so much room for growth in there, that let's see what God could do. Because we see what we could say, we see what we could do, we know what we could say, we know what we could do, we know what other people say, we know what other people do, but what can God do in it? Because sometimes we go and, like we mentioned before, these people give us this great solution for it, but we're hurting and we don't need a solution. We just need somebody to sit with us.
Yeah.
But what can God do? Because God's always sitting with us. God, that's what he wants, is that relationship with us. He wants us to be there with us. But it also gives us peace and understanding that there is something more than outside of this world and outside of this life, that when, at one day, at one point, Mary Virginia, you're going to be back united with your daughter.
Absolutely.
And that's why you had that peace at that time. So if you guys are struggling, we definitely encourage you guys to reach out to us, leave a comment, contact us. We'd be happy to talk with you guys. We can't always say we know exactly how it is to be in your situation or your shoes, because everybody's story is different.
Right.
Everybody's story is different. We know what our story is. We know how it feels to have been us, but we don't know what it feels like to be you. And if you're struggling with that, reach out to somebody. Reach out to us. Reach out to a friend. Reach out to a loved one. And I just say start sharing your story, because it's important to talk about it. That's how you process it.
The last thing I want to say is don't ever stop searching.
Yeah, that's really good. Don't ever stop searching. All right, you guys, we thank you so much for joining us today. We hope that you've got something out of this. I know every time I sit down with Mary Virginia, I get something, a whole bunch of really good nuggets of life, and just helps me process things. And especially with unforgiveness, it just makes me look deeper into it and even think more about it. And just helps me release some of the things that I've held on to my life.